The instant field of the present is always experience in its pure state, plain unqualified actuality, a simple that, as yet undifferentiated into thing and thought. These words from William James capture perhaps his most revolutionary philosophical insight, one that would fundamentally challenge how we understand the very nature of reality itself. When James spoke of radical empiricism, he wasn't simply advocating for a more thorough commitment to experience-based knowledge. He was proposing something far more profound and unsettling to traditional philosophical thinking. For James, experience wasn't merely a tool we use to understand reality, nor was it simply the means by which we gain knowledge about an external world. Experience, in its pure and immediate form, was reality itself. This insight emerged from James's growing dissatisfaction with the traditional philosophical divisions that had dominated Western thought for centuries. On one side stood the rationalists, who believed that reason and innate ideas provided the most reliable path to truth. On the other side were the empiricists, who insisted that all knowledge must come through the senses. But James saw a fundamental problem with both approaches. They both assumed a basic separation between the knower and the known, between consciousness and the world it supposedly observes. Radical empiricism dissolved this artificial boundary entirely. James argued that when we examine our actual lived experience, we never encounter this supposed division between mind and world. What we find instead is what he called pure experience, a flowing stream of immediate, undifferentiated reality that only later gets carved up by our conceptual thinking into subjects and objects, minds and matter, thoughts and things. Consider this moment as you listen to these words. Before you analyze or categorize what's happening, there's simply the immediate flow of experience itself. Sounds, sensations, thoughts, and feelings arising and passing away in an unbroken stream. James insisted that this immediate experiential flow is more fundamental than any of the distinctions we might later impose upon it. The division between you as the observer and this video as the observed object is a useful conceptual construct, but it's not present in the raw immediacy of pure experience. This perspective had radical implications for psychology and philosophy alike. If consciousness isn't something separate from the world looking out at external objects, then the traditional problems of philosophy, such as how mind can know matter or how consciousness relates to the physical world, simply dissolve. These problems arise only when we accept the artificial separation between knower and known as fundamental to reality. James developed this insight through careful attention to what he called the conjunctive relations in experience. Traditional empiricism had focused primarily on discrete sensations and ideas, treating them as separate atoms of experience that somehow needed to be connected by the mind. But James noticed that our actual experience is full of connections, transitions, and relationships that are just as immediately given as any particular sensation. The feeling of and, the sense of but, the experience of next or because all genuine features of our experiential stream, not products of mental construction. This observation led James to what he considered one of his most important philosophical contributions, the recognition that relations between things are as much a part of experience as the things themselves. When you hear a melody, you don't experience a series of disconnected notes that your mind then links together. You experience the flowing, connected sequence as an immediate unity. The relationships between the notes are given directly in experience, not added by consciousness. In our contemporary world, James's radical empiricism offers profound insights for understanding everything from mindfulness practices to virtual reality experiences. Modern neuroscience has begun to confirm what James intuited over a century ago. The brain doesn't simply receive information from an external world and construct an internal representation of it. Instead, consciousness appears to be a dynamic, flowing process that actively participates in creating the reality it seems to observe. When we practice mindfulness meditation, we often discover exactly what James described. Beneath our conceptual divisions and categorical thinking lies a more fundamental stream of pure experiencing that doesn't naturally divide itself into observer and observed. Virtual reality technology, too, reveals how malleable our sense of what constitutes real experience can be, suggesting that our ordinary distinctions between subjective experience and objective reality may be far more fluid than we typically assume. Even in fields like user experience design and human-computer interaction, James's insights prove remarkably relevant. The most effective interfaces are those that feel like natural extensions of our experiential flow rather than external tools we must consciously manipulate. They work precisely because they honor the conjunctive, relational nature of experience that James identified as fundamental to consciousness itself. The implications of radical empiricism extend far beyond academic philosophy into the very heart of how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. If James was right, then the felt sense of separation between self and world that causes so much human suffering may itself be a conceptual overlay on a more fundamental unity of pure experience. James's radical empiricism remains one of the most challenging and potentially transformative ideas in the history of psychology and philosophy, offering a vision of reality that honors the primacy of lived experience while dissolving the artificial barriers that traditional thinking has erected between mind and world. Subscribe to The Psychology of William James to explore more of his timeless ideas.